What's up ADHD crew? Today I'm going to talk all about lateness and how I prevent being late, and addressing the common occurrence of time blindness and ADHD. Time blindness. Now this is a huge problem for the majority of you, and I know from personal experience many years of failure has meant that I've really struggled with things like being on time. When I was younger, I had a constant issue with trying to get somewhere on time, and I'd frequently get in trouble. It would be just embarrassing, you know, I'd make a fool of myself, and a lot of people would be just a bit annoyed, and it comes across as kind of rude. The problem with ADHD is that growing up with this condition, especially if you're unaware that you have it, it tends to program your mind to be faulty. So our whole lives we've been living ineffectively, and that becomes somewhat of a learned behavior. So the ADHD will cause it and exacerbate it, but it makes it seem normal. So for a while I will admit that it did actually seem pretty common for me to be late, and I never really questioned it. You know, I always thought, well, that's just me. And I think that's the same with a lot of people, which is why I encourage people to get a diagnosis. You've got nothing to lose by doing it. This being late all the time is definitely a dead giveaway, and it could really answer a lot of questions for you. So essentially with ADHD, you experience something called time blindness, where you get kind of sidetracked by your own thoughts, and it distracts you from the moment and takes away from the present, right? So you're kind of living in your own little bubble, in your own little fantasy world. It kind of just messes with your perception. You'll often notice that time goes by and you will think, wow, where did that time go? It's just flew. This happens to normal people as well, but with ADHD it's more pronounced, and it's a very common occurrence, if not daily. I will say that self-awareness has been a massive help for me, and also getting the diagnosis has helped me to understand myself. So when you start applying habits, healthy habits, and a sort of strategy in your routine, you get a lot better, you build skills. So you kind of reprogram your mind to live more efficiently. And with ADHD, this is super important, right? It's underestimated because medication alone is not enough. You've got to treat it holistically. This is why I think that children who are diagnosed are really required to have habitual, consistent sort of reprogramming, if you like. They have to go through like behavioral therapy and be given lots and lots of structure from a young age. And I think when that is missing, it's disastrous, because by the time you become an adult and you've been living that way dysfunctionally your whole life, it's just so much harder to really retrain yourself to be an efficient person. So it's kind of like environmental plus genetic. Combine that, it's like a total disaster. So I just want to give you guys a few tips that I've learned over the years and I've trained myself and seen success with to help me live a more productive lifestyle and to stop being late. So say for example you've got somewhere to be, you've got an interview, you've got a meeting, you're meeting a friend. It's always polite to be on time, right? But here's the thing, life often throws us curveballs. So what do? We say, well, on average it takes me this long to get there, but we don't really take into consideration things that could possibly crop up. So my rule of thumb is, if I've got to be somewhere at a specific time, I give myself an extra amount of time, perhaps 10 minutes, and I do that purposefully. So I will schedule it in my calendar for 10 minutes earlier than it's actually meant to be. So that way I end up leaving even earlier than I would normally have planned to leave. So you're kind of like tricking yourself into thinking something is earlier. Another trick you might want to use is altering the time on your phone or your household clock. By doing this purposefully, you're going to be creating a sort of realistic narrative that the time is different, right? You perceive it to be earlier, and therefore it gets you to leave earlier. Another part of lateness is also underestimating how long it takes to prepare for something. This has caught me out many times, and has actually been one of the biggest causes of me being late. It's just me underestimating how long it takes to get things done. Say like for instance, you've got to be somewhere in the morning, you take a shower, you eat your breakfast, you do just little things here and there, and the time just whizzes by and you don't notice the time going by, and you actually don't realize how long it really takes, and it tricks you. In your mind you think that it's a lot less time than it actually is, but it creeps up very fast, and this is something you need to watch out for. I like to get everything out of the way in advance, right? So the night before I will prepare everything I need for the next day, and I will say make my lunch, put it in the fridge overnight, and then put it in my bag, put it by the front door so it's there ready for me to go at the drop of a hat. So basically you're making shortcuts, and it just really makes it a lot easier, because if you prepare these things in advance, you're taking away that stress, you're eliminating one extra stressor, right? So you're not going to be caught out rushing and panicking when you realize how little time you have left to prepare when you actually need to do it. So get it out of the way early. Another thing you might want to look into is CBT if it's that bad.